Tashtale, good evening everyone. This is Tibet This Week, a weekly feature in English that tells you about this week's news on Tibet, His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the Central Tibetan Administration. Today's headlines. His Holiness the Dalai Lama expresses optimism for change in China. His Holiness meets with staffers of senior members of European Parliament. CTA President expresses concern over recent self-immolations inside Tibet. President Dr. Sengye says Tibetan freedom struggle is the original Made in India struggle. CTA President's engagement in Washington, D.C. gathers steam. At Express Adda, an informal interaction series of the Indian Express Group, His Holiness the Dalai Lama said he is optimistic about change in China. His Holiness stated the need for a systematic approach to uphold humanistic values and said, as long as we are human, we need compassion that brings inner peace, and whatever else is going on, that peace of mind allows us to see the whole picture more clearly. Therefore, in our education system, we need to include lessons about warm-heartedness and how to find inner peace. The Tibetan spiritual leader was the chief guest at the discussion on Road to Spirituality, where His Holiness spoke on various issues from hopes for freedom inside Tibet to the importance of holistic education system and matured humanity. While in Bengaluru addressing commemoration of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's 125th birth anniversary this Tuesday, His Holiness the Dalai Lama recalled Dr. Ambedkar as a lawyer, economist and social reformer who opened eyes of millions of people. His Holiness emphasized on the role of education in eradicating social injustice, especially caste-based discrimination in India. Organized by the Social Justice Department of the Karnataka State Government, the seminar was also attended by Honorable Chief Minister of the Karnataka State. On Sunday, His Holiness the Dalai Lama met with a 7-member delegation of assistants to European Parliament at the Gagal Airport. The delegation paid visits to the seat of Central Tibetan Administration, Tibetan schools and cultural centers on its week-long visit. The group of assistants to European Parliament members was formed in October last year to strengthen support for Tibet in the European Parliament. The President of Central Tibetan Administration, Dr. Lobsang Sengye, expressed concern over death of Jamyang Losel, a Tibetan monk in his 20s, and Chakdor Kyap, a 16-year-old student, both of whom died after carrying out self-immolation protest in Tibet. President Dr. Sengye said such sacrifices by Tibetans inside Tibet prove the unlivable conditions of Tibetans inside Tibet under China's repressive policies, and that it is high time the Chinese government heed to the calls of Tibetans inside Tibet who long for freedom in Tibet and return of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Since 2009, 149 Tibetans inside Tibet have self-immolated in protest against China's repressive policies. Delivering the keynote address at the Indo-Tibet Summit 2017 held at the Constitution Club in New Delhi last Sunday, President Dr. Lobsang Sengye said Tibetan freedom struggle is based on Indian philosophy of ahimsa and is the original Made in India struggle. Organized by South and East Asia Foundation, the summit focused on topics of discussion such as cultural similarities between India and Tibet and significance of His Holiness the Dalai Lama on the India's socio-political system, and was attended by over 200 Indian dignitaries. On his first visit to Washington, D.C. since Trump administration took charge, CTA's President Dr. Lobsang Sengye called on the United States President Donald Trump to meet with His Holiness the Dalai Lama and reiterated CTA's firm commitment on middle way approach in resolving the issue of Tibet. President Dr. Sengye spoke on One China policy and middle way approach of the Tibetan people to scholars and intellectuals at the Heritage Foundation, an influential think tank to the United States administration. Speaking at the event, President Dr. Lobsang Sengye said,
within China, within the framework of the Chinese constitution, if the Chinese government implement their own laws listed in the Constitution and Minority Nationality Act, we could take that as genuine autonomy.
Reprimanding China's groundless fear of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, President Dr. Lobsang Sengye said,
His Holiness the Dalai Lama is not an obstacle to the solution of Tibet. He is the solution to the issue of Tibet. But we do believe that Tibetan cause will prevail.
While describing the grim political situation prevailing inside Tibet, which has led to 149 Tibetans to self-immolate in protest, President Dr. Sengye said,
we all know the human rights condition in Syria, and Tibet ranked just above Syria. Now, Reporters Without Borders has a report which again stated that going to Tibet is more difficult than getting access to North Korea. So we all read about North Korea in the headlines and front pages of news media, but getting into Tibet is more difficult than getting into North Korea. So this is the situation in Tibet. Now,
the president said the urgency of situation inside Tibet is further heightened by the discovery of Tibet as water tower of Asia and the Earth's third pole. On Tuesday, an American political journalism newspaper, The Hill, featured an op-ed piece by President Dr. Lobsang Sengye titled President Trump Meet the Dalai Lama, in which Dr. Sengye argued that while President Trump has reached out to adherents of the world's interconnected and monotheistic religions such as Islam, Christianity and Judaism, he should also meet with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who is an important Buddhist leader in the world and has throughout his life been a proponent of highest ideals of Buddhism, including non-violence, compassion, equanimity and kindness. In his op-ed piece, President Dr. Sengye mentions such a meeting would assist in bringing these principles to bear on issues of world peace and non-violence. The three-day visit witnessed President Dr. Sengye's meeting with prominent United States lawmakers, intellectuals and Tibet supporters. That is all for today. We'll be back with more news next week. Have a good weekend.